The outcast cafeteria of Intergalactic Academy Station Omega-7 buzzed, with the sounds of dozens of different species eating, talking, and laughing together. At least, most of them were laughing. In the far corner, sitting alone at a small table, Sarah Kethaval picked at her crystalline nutrition cubes with hands that trembled slightly. Her skin had the translucent quality that marked her as Nexari, shifting between pale blue and silver depending on her emotions. Right now, the silver dominated, betraying her fear and sadness to anyone who knew how to read Nexari biological signs. Unfortunately, most of the other students had learned those signs well over the past 2 years, and they used that knowledge to torment her further. "Look at the little crystal girl," sneered Vox, a massive brutarian whose species valued physical strength above all else. His rocky hide gleamed under the station's artificial lights as he approached her table with 3 of his friends. Still afraid to eat with the real species, Sarah kept her eyes down, hoping they would leave her alone if she didn't respond. She had learned that fighting back only made things worse. The Nexari way was peace, harmony, understanding. Her people had spent thousands of years perfecting the art of avoiding conflict. "I asked you a question, Crystal," Fox said, his voice growing louder. Other students began to notice the confrontation, but instead of helping, they either looked away or started recording on their personal devices. This had become daily entertainment for many of them. "Please," Sarah whispered, her voice barely audible. "I just want to eat in peace." "Peace?" laughed Thyra, a serpentine Zelian whose scales rippled with amusement. "That's all your kind ever talks about. Peace and harmony and understanding. No wonder the galaxy thinks you're weak." The comment stung because it held truth. The Nexari were known throughout the galaxy as pacifists, mediators, healers. While other species built weapons and conquered worlds, the Nexari had chosen a different path. They were respected as diplomats and scholars, but that respect didn't extend to places like this academy, where young beings from warrior cultures gathered to prove their strength. "My grandmother always said the Nexari were cowards," added Korath, a 4-armed Mandorian whose ancestors had been pirates before joining galactic civilization. "Too weak to fight, so they hide behind pretty words and call it wisdom." Zara's skin flickered between silver and a deep purple that indicated pain. She could feel their emotions washing over her: contempt, amusement, casual cruelty. Her empathic abilities, one of the gifts of her species, made moments like this almost unbearable. She experienced their hatred as physical pain. "You know what? I think," Vox leaned closer, his massive form blocking out the light. "I think we should test just how peaceful the Nexarus really are. What happens if we push one far enough?" Before Zara could react, Vox grabbed her nutrition cubes and crushed them in his rocky fist, letting the powder fall onto her meal. The other students laughed as she stared at the ruined food, her skin now showing streaks of bright orange that meant anger, an emotion Nexari rarely displayed. "Ooh, look at that," Thyra hissed with delight. "The little crystal is finally showing some fire. But what's she going to do about it?" "Nothing, because that's what her kind does." "Nothing." At that moment, Marcus Chen walked into the cafeteria, carrying his meal tray and looking for an empty seat. He was new to the academy, one of only 3 humans currently enrolled in the exchange program. Earth had only recently been accepted into the Galactic Education Consortium, and spots were highly competitive. Marcus had spent 8 years in the Earth Defense Corps before applying for the exchange program. He was here to study advanced engineering and diplomacy, hoping to help bridge the gap between humanity and the galactic community. At 32, he was older than most students, but his military background had taught him to adapt quickly to new situations. What he saw now made him stop in his tracks. A group of larger alien students had surrounded a smaller one, clearly engaging in behavior that would have been called bullying on any human school. The victim appeared to be from a species he didn't recognize. Her translucent skin was beautiful, but seemed to broadcast her emotional state like a neon sign. Marcus had seen enough bullying in his military career to recognize the dynamics at play. The predators had found someone they perceived as weak, someone different, someone who wouldn't fight back. It was a pattern that existed across species, apparently. "Maybe we should help her understand what happens to weak species in the real galaxy," Fox was saying, reaching toward Zara's shoulder. "That's enough," Marcus said, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed. The alien students turned toward him with expressions ranging from surprise to annoyance. Vox's rocky features twisted into a scowl. "This doesn't concern you, human," the Brutarian growled. We're just having a conversation with our friend here. Marcus set down his tray and approached the group. His military training had taught him to read hostile situations quickly, and he could see that this was about to escalate beyond verbal harassment. Conversation implies all parties are willing participants. Marcus replied calmly. From where I stand, it looks like harassment. Harassment. Thyra's scales rippled with indignation. You humans just arrived in the galaxy yesterday, and already, you think you can lecture the rest of us on proper behavior? I don't need to be from this galaxy to recognize bullying when I see it, Marcus said, stepping closer to Zara's table. And I definitely don't need permission from you to speak up. When I see someone being mistreated, Korath's forearms flexed menacingly. You should be careful, human. You're outnumbered and far from home. Maybe you should worry about your own kind's reputation instead of protecting weak crystals. Marcus glanced at Zara, who was staring at him with wide eyes that seemed to shimmer with unshed tears. Her skin had shifted to a pale yellow that he guessed meant gratitude or hope. Something about her expression reminded him of his younger sister, who had been bullied in school until Marcus taught her to stand up for herself. Here's what's going to happen, Marcus said, his voice taking on the tone he'd used when giving orders to unruly soldiers. You're going to leave this young lady alone. You're going to find something better to do with your time. And you're going to remember that strength isn't about picking on people who can't fight back. Vox laughed, a sound like grinding stone. Or what, human? What are you going to do if we don't listen to your little speech? Marcus smiled, and those who knew humans well would have recognized it as a dangerous expression. Why don't you test me and find out? The tension in the cafeteria was thick enough to cut. Other students had stopped eating to watch the confrontation. Several teachers were moving closer, ready to intervene if violence broke out. For a long moment, Vox stared at Marcus, trying to decide if the human was bluffing. Marcus stared back without flinching, his military bearing evident in every line of his body. Finally, Thyra touched Vox's arm. Come on, he's not worth the disciplinary action. Let the human play hero if he wants. This isn't over, Vox warned as the group moved away. The galaxy is bigger than this academy. Human, remember that. Marcus watched them go, then turned to Zara. Are you okay? She nodded, though her skin was still showing rapid color changes that suggested emotional turmoil. Thank you, she whispered. You didn't have to do that. Actually, I did, Marcus replied, sitting down across from her. Where I come from, we have a saying, the only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. I couldn't just watch. Zara stared at him in amazement. You're not afraid of them? Should I be? Marcus asked, genuinely curious. The Brutarians are one of the most powerful warrior races in the galaxy. Zara explained. They've conquered dozens of worlds. The Xelians are known for their cunning and their poison. The Mandorians were pirates for centuries before joining galactic civilization. They all see violence as a first response to problems. Marcus considered this. And your people? Zara's skin shifted to a deep blue that seemed to indicate sadness. The Nexari are known for peace. We're diplomats, healers, scholars. We haven't fought a war in over 3,000 years. Most species see us as weak because we choose harmony over conflict. That doesn't sound weak to me, Marcus said. It sounds evolved. The comment seemed to surprise her. Most people don't see it that way. They think we're cowards who hide behind pretty words because we can't fight. Can you fight? Marcus asked. Zara hesitated. We could, if we chose to. But we don't choose to. Violence leads to suffering, and suffering creates cycles of revenge and hatred. We learned long ago that there are better ways to resolve conflicts. Marcus nodded thoughtfully. On Earth, we have a saying, speak softly and carry a big stick. It means you should try to solve problems peacefully, but be prepared to defend yourself if necessary. Maybe your people understand the first part perfectly, but they've forgotten about the stick. What do you mean? I mean that sometimes bullies don't understand anything except strength. You can try to reason with them. You can appeal to their better nature. You can try to find common ground. But sometimes the only thing that stops a bully is someone willing to stand up to them. Zara's skin shifted to a thoughtful green. The teachers at the academy say we should report harassment to the authorities and let them handle it. And how's that working out for you? The question hung in the air. They both knew the answer. The harassment had been going on for 2 years, and despite multiple reports, nothing had changed. If anything, it had gotten worse. I should go, Zara said suddenly, gathering her belongings. They'll be angry that you interfered. I don't want to cause more trouble. Wait, Marcus called, as she stood. What's your name? Zara Kethaval, she replied. I'm Marcus Chen. And Zara, you're not causing trouble by existing. Don't let anyone make you believe otherwise. As she walked away, Marcus noticed that several other students were watching with interest. Word would spread quickly about the human who had confronted Vox and his friends. Marcus wasn't naive enough to think this was over. If anything, he had probably made things worse for both himself and Zara. But as he thought about the grateful look in her eyes, and the way her skin had shifted to hopeful yellow when he defended her, Marcus knew he would do it again in a heartbeat. Some things were worth fighting for, even in a galaxy that didn't understand humans yet. Later that evening, Marcus was studying in his quarters when his door chimed. He opened it to find Zara standing in the hallway, holding a small crystalline object that seemed to glow with its own inner light. I wanted to thank you properly, she said, offering him the crystal. This is a memory stone from my homeworld. It contains a recording of our most beautiful music. I thought you might like to understand something about my people, besides what the others say. Marcus accepted the gift, feeling its strange warmth against his palm. Thank you. That's very thoughtful, Marcus, she said hesitantly. Why did you help me? You don't even know me. Marcus considered the question carefully. Where I come from. We believe that how you treat people who can't help you says everything about who you really are. Those students were picking on you because they thought you were weak and alone. But strength isn't about being able to hurt others. Real strength is about protecting people who need protection. Zara's skin brightened to a warm gold. The Nexari have a concept called Kethmer. It means bond of protection between strangers. It's when someone chooses to help another person even though they gain nothing from it. We believe it's one of the most noble actions in the universe. Then I guess humans and Nexari have more in common than most people think, Marcus said with a smile. As Zara left, Marcus activated the memory stone. Beautiful, ethereal music filled his quarters, complex harmonies that seemed to touch something deep in his soul. It was unlike anything he had ever heard, and it made him understand something important about the Nexari people. A species that could create such beauty wasn't weak. They had simply chosen a different kind of strength. Standing together with Nex. Morning brought new challenges. Word of Marcus's confrontation with Vox had spread throughout the academy, and reactions were mixed. Some students seemed impressed that a human would stand up to established social hierarchies. Others viewed it as dangerous interference from an outsider who didn't understand galactic culture. Marcus arrived at his advanced xenobiology class to find the atmosphere notably tense. Professor Helix, a scholarly Altarian with 6 eyes and a reputation for fairness, was discussing symbiotic relationships between species when Vox raised one of his massive hands. Professor, the Brutarian said, I have a question about parasitic relationships. What happens when a species tries to interfere with natural hierarchies they don't understand? The question was clearly directed at Marcus, who kept his expression neutral. Professor Helix's multiple eyes shifted between the two students. An interesting question. Vox, in nature, intervention sometimes creates unexpected consequences. However, what appears to be natural hierarchy is often simply the result of environmental pressures. Change the environment, and the hierarchy may change as well. But some species are naturally stronger than others, pressed Korath, his forearms crossed. Trying to pretend otherwise doesn't change reality. Strength comes in many forms. Professor Helix replied diplomatically. Physical power, intellectual capacity, social cooperation, adaptive abilities. Each has advantages in different circumstances. After class, Marcus found himself walking alongside Zara toward the engineering laboratories. She had been quiet during the discussion, but he could see the rapid color changes in her skin that indicated emotional distress. They're going to make this worse for both of us, she said quietly. Probably, Marcus agreed. Does that change anything? Zara stopped walking and stared at him. Doesn't it bother you? Making enemies over someone you barely know? Marcus considered this carefully. Zara, can I tell you something about human history? For most of our existence, we were divided into groups that fought each other over resources, territory, ideology. We had wars that killed millions of people. We had systems where some humans were treated as property by other humans. Zara's skin shifted to a shocked purple. That's horrible. Yes, it was. But we learned something important from all that horror. We learned that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We learned that standing by while others suffer makes us complicit in their suffering. And we learned that sometimes good people have to take risks to protect those who can't protect themselves. They resumed walking, but Zara seemed deep in thought. The Nexari learned those lessons too, she said finally. But we learned them differently. We chose to remove ourselves from conflict entirely rather than risk causing harm. That's admirable, Marcus said. But what happens when conflict comes to you anyway? The question proved prophetic. That afternoon, during combat training, Marcus and Zara found themselves partnered for a defensive exercise. Commander Thane, the Brutarian instructor, announced the drill with obvious pleasure. Today we practice protection scenarios. Thane growled. One partner will defend while the other attempts to breach their defenses. Since we have such interesting partnerships today, let's see how the human protects the crystal. The exercise was supposed to be controlled, with energy weapons set to training levels that would cause discomfort but no real harm. However, when Vox and his friends were selected as the attacking team, Marcus immediately suspected the drill would not go according to regulations. Remember, Commander Thane announced, the goal is to test defensive capabilities under pressure. Use whatever tactics you think are necessary. The arena was a circular chamber with various obstacles and cover points. Marcus quickly assessed the tactical situation while Zara huddled behind a barrier, her skin cycling through anxious colors. Listen to me, Marcus said quietly. I know you don't like conflict, but I need you to trust me. Can you do that? Zara nodded, though her skin remained a fearful silver. Good. Stay low. Move when I tell you to move, and don't try to be a hero. I've got this. When the exercise began, Vox and his team immediately abandoned any pretense of following training protocols. Their energy weapons were cranked higher than regulations allowed, and they coordinated their attack in a way designed to inflict maximum pain. Rather than test defensive skills, Marcus moved with the fluid precision of his military training, using the arena's obstacles to break up their coordinated assault. He kept Zara behind cover while returning carefully controlled fire that disabled weapons, rather than causing injury. Is that all you've got, human? Vox taunted, launching a particularly vicious energy blast that would have seriously injured Zara if Marcus hadn't thrown himself in front of it. The blast sent Marcus sprawling, his training uniform smoking from the impact. He rolled behind cover, grimacing from the pain, but still functional. Marcus, Zara cried out, starting to move toward him. Stay down, he ordered, but it was too late. Thyra had anticipated the movement and fired a concentrated beam directly at Zara's position. What happened next shocked everyone in the arena. Zara didn't dodge the energy beam. Instead, she raised her hand, and the deadly energy simply stopped. It hung in the air for a moment, crackling and writhing, before being absorbed into her crystalline skin. For just an instant, her entire body blazed with power that made the arena's light seem dim by comparison. Then she collapsed, her skin fading to an almost transparent white. The arena fell silent. Even Commander Thane looked stunned. Marcus rushed to Zara's side, checking her pulse and breathing. She was unconscious but stable. As he cradled her head, her eyes fluttered open. I'm sorry, she whispered. I wasn't supposed to do that. What exactly did you do? Marcus asked gently. Before she could answer, Commander Thane approached with several other instructors. The exercise is over, he announced. Medical team to the arena immediately. As the medics checked Zara over, Marcus caught fragments of whispered conversations among the faculty. Energy absorption at that level. I thought the Nexari couldn't. If they can do that, why do they? Marcus was beginning to understand that there was much more to the Nexari than anyone realized. Later, in the medical bay, Zara was recovering, under the care of Dr. Vale, a compassionate healer whose species specialized in multi-species medicine. Marcus sat beside her bed, waiting for her to fully regain consciousness. She'll be fine, Dr. Vale assured him. But I've never seen energy absorption capabilities like that. The readings are off the charts. When Zara finally woke up, her first words were, how much trouble am I in? That depends, Marcus said gently. Want to tell me what really happened out there? Zara's skin cycled through several colors before settling on a resigned blue. The Nexari aren't weak, she said quietly. We never were. I'm listening. We can absorb and redirect energy, not just the kind from weapons, but life energy, emotional energy, even stellar radiation. We can influence the thoughts and feelings of other beings. We can manipulate matter at the molecular level. Some of us can even bend space and time in limited ways. Marcus stared at her in amazement. Then wide because power corrupts, Zara said simply. 3,000 years ago, the Nexari were conquerors. We used our abilities to dominate other species, to force our will upon the galaxy. We were so Powerful that entire civilizations simply gave up rather than fight us. What changed? We nearly destroyed ourselves, Zara continued. The power made us arrogant, cruel. We created suffering on a scale that still haunts our collective memory. So we chose a different path. We bound ourselves with oaths never to use our abilities for harm, never to impose our will on others, never to let power corrupt us again. Marcus was quiet for a long moment, processing this revelation. But you broke that oath today. Yes, Zara whispered, her skin showing deep shame. To protect you. The beam would have killed you if it had hit. I couldn't let that happen. So, you revealed your people's secret to save someone you barely know. You stood up for me when no one else would. You treated me with kindness when everyone else saw weakness. I couldn't let you die for that. Marcus felt a profound respect for this young woman who had sacrificed everything she believed in. To protect him. What happens now? I'll probably be expelled, sent home in disgrace. The Academy will contact the Nexari Council, and they'll have to decide whether to maintain the secret or reveal the truth about our species. At that moment, Director Corvish entered the medical bay. The ancient being who ran the Academy rarely involved himself in student affairs, but the day's events had clearly reached his attention. Miss Kethaval, he said in his deep, resonant voice, we need to talk. The conversation that followed would change everything at the Academy. Director Corvish had suspected the truth about the Nexari for some time, having encountered their species during his long career. He was more concerned about the implications of the harassment Zara had endured. The Academy is supposed to be a place where all species can learn together in safety, he said gravely. We have failed in that mission where you are concerned. Over the next few days, a thorough investigation revealed the extent of the bullying Zara had endured. Multiple students were disciplined, including Vox, who was suspended from the Academy. More importantly, new policies were implemented to protect students from harassment based on their species, perceived strengths or weaknesses, but the most significant change came from an unexpected source. Word of Marcus's actions had spread beyond the Academy, reaching Earth's diplomatic corps and the Nexari Council simultaneously. Both governments saw an opportunity to strengthen interspecies relations. Ambassador Sarah Martinez arrived from Earth to meet with Nexari representatives, including Zara's parents. The negotiations were delicate, but they resulted in a new exchange program specifically designed to foster understanding between humans and Nexari. Your species has something remarkable, Elder Ketson told Marcus during the ceremonies. You have the courage to stand up for others even when it costs you personally. But more than that, you have the wisdom to see strength in what others call weakness. Humans have made a lot of mistakes, Marcus replied. We've learned that protecting each other is one of the few things we consistently get right. Zara, who had been cleared of any wrongdoing and invited to stay at the Academy, stood with them as the new partnership was announced. Her skin glowed with a warm gold that Marcus had learned meant deep contentment. There's something I want to show you, she said to Marcus after the ceremony. She led him to one of the Academy's observation decks, where they could see the stars through the massive transparent aluminum windows. With a gesture, Zara dimmed the room's lights and held up her hands. Energy flowed from her fingers, creating a miniature galaxy that spun slowly in the air between them. Tiny stars twinkled, planets orbited in perfect harmony, and nebulae swirled with ethereal beauty. This is what the Nexari were meant to create, she said softly. Beauty, harmony, wonder, not fear or domination. Marcus watched in amazement as the miniature galaxy evolved, showing the dance of cosmic forces in fast forward. It's incredible. My people were so afraid of becoming monsters again, that we almost forgot we could choose to be something better. You reminded me that strength and compassion don't have to be opposites. The months that followed brought dramatic changes to the Academy. The partnership between humans and Nexari created new opportunities for research, diplomacy, and cultural exchange. Students who had once seen either species as inferior began to appreciate their unique strengths. Marcus completed his studies and was offered a position with the Galactic Diplomatic Corps, specializing in interspecies conflict resolution. Zara became the Academy's first Nexari teaching assistant, helping other students understand the complexities of empathic species. But perhaps the most important change was simpler than all the official programs and policies. Throughout the Academy, students began to understand that strength came in many forms: the quiet courage to stand up for others, the wisdom to choose peace over violence, the determination to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. And in the depths of space, on a station where dozens of species learned together, two unlikely friends had proven that sometimes the most powerful force in the universe was simply someone willing to say, "Not on my watch." Years later, when Marcus became Earth's ambassador to the Nexari homeworld, he would keep a memory stone on his desk, not the one Zara had given him that first night, but a new one containing the sound of dozens of species singing together in harmony. It reminded him daily that the greatest victories weren't won through superior firepower or political maneuvering. They were won by ordinary people who chose to do extraordinary things for each other. The Academy still faced challenges, as any institution bringing together diverse species would, but it never again allowed systematic harassment to go unchallenged. And somewhere in the student's handbook, written in dozens of languages, was a new principle that had emerged from one human's simple act of decency. The strength of our community is measured not by the power of our strongest members, but by how we protect our most vulnerable ones. It was a lesson that would spread far beyond the Academy's walls, carried by graduates who remembered the day a human stood up for an alien girl, and she stood up for him in return. Together, they had shown the galaxy that sometimes the most important battles weren't fought with weapons or technology. They were fought with courage, compassion, and the simple refusal to stand by when others needed help. In the end, that was the most human thing of all.